Right, so today we're going to take a look at just some of the basics, things you can do with the calculator, and some of the things I show you we're going to use all year. Okay? Obviously, I can't show you everything that the calculator does in the next half hour, but I'll show you some of the simple things, and most of the things you need to know we'll learn as we go. All right, so first thing I'm going to show you is how you turn the calculator on. Okay, you press on. Okay, you might get this screen. It depends if it's been turned on or not over the summer. If you get this screen, you can just press do not show this message again in the future. If you pressed on and didn't get that screen, hopefully you should be at this screen. Okay. Is anybody not at this screen? Yep. So if you're not at this screen, you can try pressing, and I'm going to explain this, press clear, and see, did that bring you to this screen? Okay. Then press second, and press the mode button right next to it. Did that bring you to the screen? Good. All right, so this is the basic screen. Okay, this is the home screen where you can type in basic arithmetic and stuff like that. Okay, if the screen is too dark or too bright, one thing we can do is turn the brightness up and down. Okay, and the way you do it is you just press second and then up. Okay, I think if you hold it, it actually gets all the way as bright as it can. And then if you press second and hold down, the screen will get darker. Okay, I suggest don't put it all the way at the maximum brightness because it will die quicker and you don't want it to die on you in the middle of class. Okay, was anybody not able to turn their brightness up and down? Okay, once it's set, you really never need to change it. It'll stay at that same brightness all the time. Okay, what happens with an older graphing calculator is that as the batteries died, the screen would get dimmer and dimmer and dimmer until you finally couldn't see it, and you had to keep turning it darker. This won't do that. It'll stay at the same brightness until the battery dies, and then the screen just turns off. Yes? A number came up on yours? Let's take a look. All right, so if you press, I'm just going to clear everything. If you press second and then hold up, it gets brighter. Press second and hold down. I don't know if you can see it, but it just got darker. Okay, I generally, I'll turn it down just a little from the maximum. Maybe you can put it wherever you need to see it. All right, let's see. Okay, one thing you'll probably use a lot is clear. Okay, so if you've got a calculation on the screen, okay, and you want to get rid of it, all you do is press clear. Okay, sometimes clear will bring you back to the screen. Like if I press the mode button and I want to get back to the home screen, I can press clear. Okay, that doesn't always work. Okay, clear doesn't always bring you back to the home screen, and I think Connor, we saw that earlier, you press clear, it didn't bring you back. If I'm in this screen, and let's say I type in y equals mx plus b, simple equation. If I press clear, all it's going to do is clear what I just typed in. Clear is not going to bring me back to the home screen. Okay, so the other way to get back to the home screen, which I showed Connor, is you press second and then press the mode button, which is quit. So anytime you press second, you're using one of the functions that's written in blue. Okay? So you might, let's say you wanted to get this sign with a little -1, okay, right there. Press second, sign, and it does what's in blue. Okay, so any question on the second key? All right. Okay, enter. Okay, anytime you want to evaluate something, you always have to hit enter. The calculator doesn't do it by itself. Not going to tell me what that is until I press enter. All right, so I showed you how you can press second. There's one more button you can press, okay, that changes what these keys do, and that's alpha. Okay, each key on this calculator really does three things. It's basic function. You can press second, do something different, and then press alpha and do something different. Okay, if I press alpha, what it's going to do is all the stuff that's in green above each key. And what do you notice? The stuff that's in green, they're all mostly what? Yeah, they're letters. Okay, so can you keep pressing alpha? I have to press it each time I do a letter. Okay, but if I press alpha and then press a key, it types in a letter. Any ideas what you'd use those letters for? Yep, Adrian? Okay, so when we have equations, a lot of times we have like variables in them, so we can use it as a variable. Any letter on this calculator you can store a number into. So let's say you did, I don't know, a calculation, 2 divided by 7. Okay, and you want to remember that number. Okay, round it off, 0.286. We can take 0.286, okay, type in the number, and then there's a button on here that will store it, and then I can pick any letter I want to store it in. Okay, so anybody think they see the button that's going to allow me to store? Okay, I'll talk about what mem does. That's a good guess because a lot of calculators call it memory, but actually memory won't work on this one.
STO.
Yep. STO, it's right down by the number 4. Okay, if you press STO, you're going to see a little arrow on the screen. And what that means is it's going to take 0.286 and put it. Now we can pick a letter. All right, let's say, Ryan, I want to put that in letter A. How do I get an A right there?
Hit alpha.
Yep.
The math button.
And then the math button. And now I got to hit enter. And now it just put 0.286 in for A. So now I could do something like this. A plus 1. Okay, and if I type that in, I should get 1.286, and I do. So now I can do calculations with that number, and I don't have to type it every time. Okay, I can use A. That will stay as A until you reset the memory in the calculator. All right, so you can store something in any letter you want up to Z. Okay, so you have 26 different places you could put something in memory. We don't do that a lot, but you can if you want to. Okay, any questions on how to store a number in the calculator? Okay, sometimes people forget the order, but you have to type in the number you want to store, then the store button, then the letter you want to store it into, and then hit enter. If you type it the other way around, it won't do what you would expect. It won't work. All right, storing things. Next thing is the difference between these two symbols. You guys probably know it. What's the difference between the number below or the button below the times and the one next to the decimal? They're both horizontal dashes. Luke?
The one below the times is like you're subtracting something,
Yes, that's a subtraction sign.
and the one on the very bottom is like you're reading that number as negative.
Yep, that's your negative. And you can't switch those. If I want to do 5 minus 2, I have to type it like that. If I type this, the calculator is going to have no idea what that means. So when you type something wrong, that's what you usually see. Okay, it means error. Syntax means there's something that's not typed in correctly. You used a symbol or you used a button wrong. What I could do is this. That should work fine, but that doesn't mean 5 minus 2. What does that mean?
Times.
Yeah, that means times, and I get negative 10. Okay? So there's that. Okay, another thing that's helpful to know is how we do powers. Okay? Anybody think they could tell me how you type in 5 squared? There's actually 2 or 3 ways to type it in. Yep, how about Adrian?
I'm going to be the first one is 5, then that's 2, or 5, the
5 the up arrow and then 2.
Yeah, so there's the 2 ways.
I don't know.
You can press 5 press the X squared button, which is all the way on the left, just above the 7 diagonally. And that's one way you can square something. The up arrow is another way, and what's nice about the up arrow is you can type in any number you want. Okay? You don't have a button on here for raising to the 5th power and 6th power, so sometimes you have to use the up arrow. Same thing. Yeah, question?
You can just do, for the last way, can't you just do 5 times 5?
Yep, and you could type it out the long way, 5 times 5. Yep, you can do it that way too. And do they have it? No. So that's it. There's only 2 ways I can think of, or 3 ways if you count 5 times 5. All right, if you want to start doing higher powers, you can cube something. If you go to math, there is an option to cube something. But I don't think going to the math menu is any shorter than just pressing the up arrow and pressing 3. Because you have to press math, go to the 3rd option, and then hit enter. Versus 5, up arrow, 3, enter. It's probably just as quick either way. All right, so if we can raise something to a power, like squaring, what's the opposite of raising to a power? Say you wanted to reverse squaring or cubing. Yeah, Bria? Yeah, taking a root, whether it's square root, cube root. Okay, there's a button on here for square root. Does anybody think they see where it is? It's actually a button we've already used today, earlier. Yep, Sam?
The pointy arrow thing. That's like an arrow pointing up, I guess.
This one?
Yeah.
Well, this one we're going to use for a power. So that's what we're going to use for a power. We won't end up using that one for a root. But again, it's a button we've already used today. Yep, Federico?
Do second X squared.
Yeah, if you press second and then press the X squared button, you get a root on the screen. Specifically, you get a square root. So you can type in the square root. There is also an option for a cube root. So let's say you want to do cubes, go to math. It's the 4th option down. Okay, so there's 2 ways you can get to it. Just press 4, or you can scroll down to it and then hit enter. Either way. Okay, and then we could take the cube root of, let's do 8 and get 2. But just like powers, sometimes you want to do roots other than those 2. Okay, so we need kind of a generic way to type in a root. And that's what this 5th option is. Okay, if you go to math, go to option 5. There's a little X. So now what it asks me for is 2 numbers. Tell me the root you want to take. Okay, that's the index, the number on the outside. And then we can type in the number on the inside, okay, the radicand. So let's do a 5th root of 32. Okay. And if we hit enter, what's the 5th root of 32? Yeah, Jack?
2.
2. Yeah. Okay, so that's how you could type in any root you want. You go to math and go to the 5th option down. What's nice about the newer calculators is they actually display it the way you would write it on paper. Older calculators wouldn't display it like this. Okay, it would look kind of funny. Okay, but newer ones basically write it the way you would write it on paper. Okay, let's go back to that math menu. There's something else here that's pretty handy. And it's this arrow with a fraction. Does anybody have a guess what this does? Think of an arrow pointing towards fraction. What do you think that would do? Yeah.
It converts what, like, if you have like a decimal or a percent, it would convert it into a fraction.
Yeah. So if I type in something like, let's just type 0.375. And I'm going to hit enter. Actually, you know what? I could probably do it without even hitting enter. Take 0.375, press math, and pick the first option. It's going to change 0.375 to a fraction, which is 3/8. Right, so that's handy anytime you have to change something to a fraction. Yes, Luke? You got an appointment? Yeah, just sign up for it. Okay, and likewise, if you had to change something back to a decimal under the math menu, there's an option to do that as well. Okay, tons of things here. Okay, we're not even going to talk about all these other things that you can do under math. Okay, we'll talk about logarithms eventually. Another handy one is under number. Okay, and this is probably going to come up tomorrow or maybe Thursday. This is how you type in absolute value. So if I press math, go to number, the first option is absolute value. If I press that, now I get my absolute value bars. And I could type in something like absolute value -3, which if I hit enter, what should I get? I get 3. Okay, and don't worry, we're going to talk about how you get absolute value. If you don't remember this, we'll talk about it when we need to use it. What else? Okay, another thing that's handy is, let's say I typed in this. Had this long calculation typed in, and I typed in one thing wrong. Okay, rather than retyping everything, I can press second, enter. And what that'll do is it'll bring up the last thing I typed in, and now I can just make a small change to it. Okay, use my arrows, and let's say 6 was supposed to be 7. I can just change it, hit enter, and there's my answer. Okay, let's say instead of the number 8, I wanted 82. Now if I use my arrow and put in just press 2, what's going to happen?
It'll get rid of the minus.
It's going to get rid of the minus, and then it's going to read 829 plus 7, and so on. Okay, so what I want to do is insert a 2. I want to squeeze it in, but I don't want to get rid of what's there. Does anybody know how you insert something? And there's a button on here that actually begins with the 3 letters we need. Yep.
It's just above the delete, so you have to hit second and then delete.
Yep. So watch my cursor. It's blinking like a black right now. If I press second delete, now it changed how it's blinking. That's what it looks like when I'm going to insert. And it's still blinking like that. So if I keep pressing numbers, it'll keep inserting them till I move my cursor left or right. Now it's back to normal. So that's a quick way to insert if you need to. And you can keep pressing second enter, and it'll keep typing in everything that you typed in. These are all the things that we've done so far in class. I don't remember how many it does. It probably does at least 20 or 30. You can go back. All right, let's see. Okay, another screen we'll spend quite a bit of time on is this screen. Okay, this is the graphing screen. Okay, to get to this screen, you press the y equals button. Is there anybody's screen that does not say y equals when you press y equals? Yep. What does yours say?
Does R.
It says R? All right. So what I need you to do is press on mode.
Okay.
And where it says function, parametric, and polar, I need you to change it from polar, because that's what it's on right now, to function.
Okay.
So just go down to function, hit enter. Now go back to y equals. Are we good?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, anybody else? All right, so as we just saw, there are different ways to graph things besides y equals. That's one of those topics we'll do towards the end of the year. All right, so here you can type in any function that you want. Okay, anything that begins with y equals. So like 3x plus 2. I'm going to hit graph, but can somebody describe that to me before I do? Describe to me what that should look like. Oh, Ian? Can you tell me what that's going to be?
Now that's going to be multiplied by the x value and then add 2.
So what shape is it going to be?
Straight line.
Perfect. It's going to be a straight line. Can anybody tell me something about that straight line? Tell me like the 3 and the 2. What do those have to do with the line? Yep. James?
Is it gonna go through 2 on the x-axis, I think, or the y-axis?
On the y-axis?
Yeah.
Yep. Does anybody remember what we call that? It's going to go
The
through 2.
y-intercept.
Yep. So it's got a y-intercept of 2. And what about the 3?
Oh, that's the slope.
That's the slope. So it's a very simple line with a slope of 3, y-intercept of 2. Now, so everybody looks the same when we graph it. I'm going to press zoom, and I'm going to press 6. What that does is it sets the calculator to a standard window. A standard window is -10 to +10 on the x-axis, and -10 to +10 on the y-axis. That's called a standard window. -10 to 10, -10 to 10. Okay, and I can check that it's -10 to 10 by pressing window. You can see your x min, x max, y min, y max. That's the size of the window. All right, let me show you why setting that window is important. I'm going to graph this shape. What shape is that when I square x? It's a quadratic now, and that's not a line anymore.
Parabola.
Yep, it's a parabola. Okay. And I'm going to do something to it. I'm going to do x squared plus 10. Okay, and I'm going to graph that in the standard window. So it's still in the standard window till I change it. So you can do zoom 6 again, but you don't need to. You can just press graph this time. After typing in x squared plus 10. And as long as that little yellow thing is spinning in the upper right and it's doing something, now it's done. Where's my graph? Let me guess why I can't see it.
So it doesn't fit in the window.
Yeah, it's off this window. Okay? By doing a plus 10, I shifted this graph off the screen. So one of the probably toughest things we do on the calculator is finding a screen that shows me what I want to see. Okay? Just because I know what kind of graph this is, it's a parabola, it's shifted up 10, it's up off the screen. So I'm going to go to window, and if I want to see things that are higher, I have to change my y value, specifically the maximum. Let's say I want to see up to 20. Now when I hit graph, I guarantee I'll see a picture. There's my parabola. Okay. So before, we were basically looking like this. It's not that the graph, we typed it in wrong, it's we didn't have the right window to see it. Any questions on that? So a lot of things that we're going to do, we got to try to get a window that lets us see everything that's important. For a parabola, I would say that means make sure you can see where it turns. If you did something like this, let's do y min of -13. I meant positive 13. So if I want to stop it from graphing, you can press second quit, and that'll usually stop it. And I'm going to set positive 13. Okay, that's not a good window. Okay, I've cut off the turning point of the parabola. Okay, so I'm going to ask you on a test, I'll give you a problem, and I'll ask, what is a good window to see all the twists and turns in this picture? And there might be more than one answer, but you'll have to play with the window on the calculator and find a good one. Hey, questions on that? All right. So what else? So we can graph several things at the same time. So I'm just going to go back to that basic parabola, which is x squared. And I'm also going to graph, say, 2x plus 1. So I'm going to graph a line and a parabola. I'm going to graph it in a standard window. And what's nice about the color screen, you'll see the parabola in blue, you'll see the line in red. Now, what might be something I want to know looking at that screen? Yeah, I might want to know where these lines intersect. Okay, we'll talk about how to do that. Not today, but some other time. What else might be something I want to know on that screen? Maybe something with that parabola. Yeah.
I was going to say something else. What each line is, like, is that an interval of 1, 2?
All right, so yeah, that's a good point. We might want to know, what's my scale? Okay. In this case, if you do a standard window, it's putting a tick mark every 1 unit. If you really wanted to change how often you see a tick mark and say put it every 2 units, you could. It does nothing other than change how many tick marks appear on the screen. Okay? So I can't really think why we would be changing the scale very much, but you can. But yeah, that's a good point. You might want to know the scale. What else might you want to know in this picture? How about something about that parabola? Does the parabola go up and down forever? You think, Dender? Does that parabola go up and down forever? No, it goes up forever. But does it go down forever? No, there's a minimum somewhere. So this one's kind of obvious, but maybe we want to know where that minimum is. What's the lowest that it ever hits? We can figure that out too. Another thing you can do, purely a visual thing, if you like to have grid lines on in the background, you could turn on grid lines by going second format, and you can turn your grid on. I don't like the grid on. I think it looks kind of, I don't know, I think it puts a lot of extra lines on the screen. But if you want the grid on, you could do that. And you could take these pictures, and if you have this calculator on your computer, you can drag them right off the calculator. And if you wanted to print it out as part of the homework, you could print it, you could upload it, you could do whatever you want, because you can drag the pictures right off the screen. So that's pretty handy too. And I think that works with like Microsoft Word, Paint. We tried it. All right, so that's just some of the basic things you can do with the calculator. We'll learn more as we go throughout the rest of this week. And so for tonight, okay, so a couple things. Make sure you get the sheet signed. Okay, so there's 2 sheets to have signed. Try to get the calculator up and running, or if you're going to buy one, start to look into that.